what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Exchange on the Mesh Podcast Network, a monthly conversation about startups, small business, with ideas, tools, and advice to operate your business more effectively. On today's show, successful businesses have to find the right niche to survive, and more looking at our environment and sustainability as a way to compete. Today, we'll be talking with Eric Henry, who is CEO of TS Designs in Burlington, North Carolina, where he's making high-quality apparel here in the United States with local and sustainable materials, carving out his niche despite having to battle low-cost overseas imports. We'll also be highlighting some small businesses that you should be checking out on our Small Business of the Month feature. Hello, my name is Jeff Neuville. I'm your co-host. I'm director of the Manufacturing Solutions Center in Conover, North Carolina. I'm joined by my co-host, Gary Muller, who is Executive Dean of Economic Development and Corporate Education at Catawba Valley Community College in Hickory, North Carolina. Gary, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. It's been a little bit rough start to 2024 like we were talking about. My basketball team, I'm seeing you're wearing your Carolina shirt, which obviously they're playing great. Yeah. Wake Forest had a nice run of 9 games, and now it's a little bit rough patch for us.
Well, you know, it's Groundhog Day today. We're taping this on Groundhog Day, so maybe you'll get 6 more weeks of basketball season. Maybe there's some wins
right
there.
Now, I'm looking for our baseball team's preseason number 1 in the country.
So you're hoping spring comes early,
and that we don't play the baseball because it sounds good to say that we're one in the country.
Okay, well that's good. Well, I'm.
You don't know what to say when I say that.
I went to Carolina. They're playing Duke this weekend. That's a big.
That's a big game.
Big game for me. I'll have to make sure no one else is in my house because I get a little upset and stressed out during these games, and sometimes throw things and say things that might embarrass me.
I need you to tell my wife Tammy that so she knows that I'm not the only one.
Okay, I'm happy to give you a little bit of cover there, but. We're very fortunate to have a guest with us today. Let's welcome our guest, Eric Henry. Eric, how are you doing today?
Good morning. And I got to make a plug for those Go Heels. Big basketball game this weekend. So, but yeah, thanks so much for inviting me to be on your show today. Looking forward to it.
Well, Eric, we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you have some Tar Heel roots as well. And just as a matter of introduction, as I mentioned, Eric is the CEO of a company called TS Designs in Burlington, North Carolina, that does manufacturing of high quality printed apparel. They focus on being domestic. They focus on providing a trackable supply chain and being very transparent. Eric, although you would not know it by looking at him, has been doing this for over 40 years. And
he looks like a youngster.
And he has seen many changes and transitions in the apparel industry from where it went being a primarily domestic industry to where over 97% of clothing is now produced overseas. But Eric is on a mission to change some of that. And Eric, it looks like you also have some other interests in beyond apparel, and then I noticed that you're also a board member of the Burlington Beer Works Co-op. Is that true?
That's correct. That is the first cooperatively owned brewery in the state. At the time we opened, there were 10 in the country. So we purposely, again, I don't know anything about making beer, although I enjoy it. I don't know anything about good food, but I also enjoy that. So we created a business in downtown Burlington that's owned by the community. So I think we've got 3,000 owners now. And we purposely designed it that way so that Burlington Beer Works will always be a part of Burlington, no matter what happens to me, move, go, whatever. So, yes, that's been open now just 5 years.
So I mean, is it a place where we can come and sit down and have a beer? I mean, are they brewing there? What's going on there?
For sure. Come on down. Again, we took 3 buildings in downtown Burlington. We went 3 stories up. Again, we make our own beer, focus on local food, open Tuesday through Sunday, brunch on weekends, just a phenomenal thing. And we purposely, I've lived in Burlington now for 63 years, I think, losing track of time. But I remember what our downtown used to be, like a lot of small downtowns. And through globalization and the invention of strip shopping centers and malls and stuff like that, our small town was devastated. And so, unfortunately, I started a cooperative grocery store downtown, and that model was a little bit ahead of its time, and that did not work. But we took that same idea of a cooperative ownership business, and this is a more like a retail base, like REI is. So it's owned by the community. But anyway, we got the idea. People like good beer, like good food. We want to invest in downtown Burlington, and it has been a phenomenal success. In going through the whole, I think, year after we opened, we had to go through the whole COVID stuff. But we got a great staff down there and phenomenal food and beer. So please, next time in Burlington, stop by. The beer's on me.
Well, easy.
That's
Well, just tell them Eric
and the
sent
food.
you. Yeah,
The
just
food
tell them
too.
Eric sent you. All right.
That's great. Good to hear.
Well, I and some friends of mine look for interesting places to drink beer, so that's going on the radar. So
Well, that's on the way to Chapel Hill, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We're about 30 minutes from Chapel Hill. So yes, you can
no,
come by as you're coming out of Hickory off of 40, drop right off into Burlington, have a beer or so, and then shoot on down to Chapel Hill about another 30 minutes.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I'm glad we got the beer out of the way because that is my top priority. But tell us a little bit about TS Designs. You've been working with them for a long time, and you've been sort of bobbing up and down in the wind, the waves of change going on in the industry. So tell folks a little bit about what TS Designs does and sort of the changes that you've had to deal with since NAFTA many years ago,
Yep.
but how you sort of fought back from it.
I remember NAFTA very well, but again, I'm Eric Henry, President of TS Designs, and we're mainly in the custom printed apparel business, i.e. printed T-shirts. So for us, NAFTA was the pivot point of our business. TS Designs have been around 48 years. I've been here 44 years. TS Designs comes from my retired business partner's name, Tom Sineath. Some people call it T-shirts, but it's just Tom Sineath. So anyway, we built what they call large or high volume contract screen printer. Got into this building again, I think 2 years before NAFTA. And so our brands were Tommy, Nike, Gap, Polo, Adidas. Over 120 people worked here. Banks loved this. Business was great. January 1, 1994, NAFTA's ratified. Within 2 years, over 100 of those employees had to be laid off. The brands left, as we know, that giant sucking sound that Ross Perot talked about. This was ground zero. I got here because my dad actually used to work for Burlington Industries. And so it was just devastating, not only to our business, to our community, to textiles and apparel, because that was the start of many other global trade agreements. And as you mentioned earlier, Jeff, and I use the word 98%, 97, 98%, whatever, of our clothes now are made overseas. But we realized then, as we realize now, just there's something wrong when you go outside of your market for a product or service your market can deliver. And believe it or not, and per the painting behind me from a photograph, we grow great cotton here. So we realized then, again, as we realize now, we're not leaving. And so it has been a challenging uphill battle because in general, I believe the apparel industry has moved overseas. They've really attention their focus of how to take advantage of that much cheaper labor, which sometimes or a lot of times is unsustainable. And then also the lack of regulations when it comes around environmental social values, definitely in developing countries. They've been able to max out their profits, their bottom lines. And so I like to say that bill is now due. You cannot continue to neglect the impact of people and planet, which has been done by the apparel industry. And now as we understand more what those costs are, it's important. Now, I will drop another scary fact on you back to the 97 or 98%. The other big thing that's looming in the background that we're just now talking about, and I've talked to quite a few people, and they think the number is on the conservative side, really. Somebody actually had a higher number we was talking. 30% of the clothes that are manufactured never, ever make it to retail. Somebody sits in office somewhere trying to figure out what you guys are going to be wearing a year from now because it's coming from overseas. I wish we never called it fast fashion because it's not fast. But anyway, somebody's trying to figure what you're going to wear. And then they make an estimate. So now what brands do, they incorporate that 30% loss into their cost. But the image that I like to show, and I'm getting a little off the tangent here, Jeff, bring me back in a second, but the image that just sticks in my mind I show a lot is a satellite image of a desert in Chile where the pile of clothes is bigger than the town it sits beside. That's where we are today. And so what we're doing, you would be screaming if that was in your backyard, but no, we're taking advantage of this place in Chile because they don't have the rules and regulations. Europe is much further ahead on this. U.S. better get its act together. But again, that bill is now due when it comes to impact to people and planet.
Yeah, and are you suggesting that the reason that 30% of apparel never makes it to retail is just because of extended poor forecasting, extended supply chains, and poor planning,
Yes.
and so on and so forth?
I mean, you would think, Jeff, during COVID, we had that wake-up call that, global supply chains don't always work that well during global disruptions. And look what's going on right now. We got issues with Suez Canal, the Panama Canal, the Gaza situation, Ukraine situation, China, blah, 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 blah. But again, they still keep driving. How do we make it? I think brands in general, I don't say all brands, but pretty much feel like if they're not producing their product overseas, they're leaving some money on the table. And what I'm hoping in the work that we're doing, matter of fact, with UNC Business School, is let's put a cost, let's put a price on that 30%. Let's put a price on that lack of transparency. We end up that all of a sudden we find out we have apparel that's made by the Uyghurs in China, and nobody knew about it, and then it's too late now. So I think the biggest problem is because of a globalization and just what's happening right now with what's in the Suez Canal and having to go around Africa, it's taking longer to get here. So they're just having, I've here, and again, we don't work with those brands anymore. Some brands are like, 12 to 18 months out in forecasts. And I can tell you at that point, I don't care how much you're getting paid, you're guessing. There's no way that you can turn what you guys or we're going to be wearing or our wives are going to be wearing 18 months from now. It's just a guess. So that's what they do. They just pad it and knowing that they're just going to dump it out the back.
Well, we're talking here about some pretty big global issues here. So let's try to bring that down to your company and what you guys do to try to have some impact on that. And it's going to take more than you and your company, but you're planting a flag and trying to make sure people understand these issues, and you're actually trying to do something about it. So you pursue a strategy that you call the triple bottom line, called people, planet, and profit. So what does that mean to you and your company?
Well, again, Jeff, that goes back to, having a business that essentially I started while I was at NC State, overnight get destroyed by the idea of somebody could do it cheaper. And I was a very, very early adopter to the idea of a triple bottom line. Because I think at the end of the day, we do have an obligation and a responsibility, not only to our shareholders, stakeholders, or investors, or whatever it might be, but what are we doing to the people that that work here, the people that are in our supply chain, and the impact we have on the planet? And I think that's more important than ever that we are responsible for that. So yes, we were an early adopter. As I look out the window and just from our just landscaping and how we treat the land, it looks more like a forest than it does a typical industrial business and industrial park. But again, I think it's just we've been at it so long, Jeff. It's essentially built into our DNA. Everything we do as a business looks at that impact. Yes, how to impact the bottom line, but we realize too by not going overseas, we're going to make some sacrifices. And one of the sacrifices we made is those customers that are solely interested in price probably will not do business with us because they'll get it cheaper. But as we come out, and again, this was a very, very hard conversation to have, say in the mid 90s, where people say, wait a minute, you only buy, we're able to take cotton from this image behind me, and we're able to, I like to say, we make a shirt, dirt to shirt is what our tagline is, 700 miles, completely transparent supply chain, all in North Carolina. So anyway, we started that probably 15 plus years ago. And so in the early days, what would happen is people said, wait a minute, it costs too much. Why would I pay you that when I can get it over there? But then when we start digging deeper, what is the environmental and social impact of those choices? And you're laying off people and affecting their jobs and affecting the environment. I like to say it's not that our product costs more. It's probably what you're buying is not priced properly. And that's the thing that I was saying and that we're working on now with the business school down at UNC is, when we throw around these terms of 98% overseas and 30% close it, don't make retail, what does that actually mean cost? Not the cost to you when you go buy it, but because I like to say too, we're not measuring the external negative cost of, again, those clothes sitting in the desert. It doesn't really hurt you guys, those clothes sitting in the desert, but it is a cost. And so we need to start recognizing those costs. And when we recognize those costs, then this whole thing about, well, it costs too much making in the U.S. Well, does it really? And so, but it's tough. I mean, it's not a black and white answer. And the challenge that we have from a consumer standpoint, if you're just given an option of something that's $10 and $5 without any other information, of course you're going to buy the one at $5. We all do that. Our job, and what we like to say is our best customer is an educated customer. And I have hope in the future when I especially work with younger people, where they're asking those questions. Where's that made and how that made? I want to know that person. I want to contact that person. So I'm encouraged with the future, but also we've got a lot of ground to make up, and we don't have a lot of time in which to do it.
Well, none of us wants to sit around and say, global warming is a good thing because it's making people more sensitive about environmental issues and sustainability. No one wants to sit around and say, oh, there's some positive benefits from COVID is that people, we were able to figure out how to make PPE masks and gowns and things here domestically. I mean, there might have been some positive things, but the negatives greatly outweigh them. So I mean, are you seeing? You say you're talking to young people. You're working with the UNC Business School. Are you seeing more interest, more focus? Is there a shift in consumer attitudes at this point in time? Are people being more open to saying, yeah, I'm willing to pay more to get it made locally, to work with companies that have more interest in our environment and focused on these things?
Yes, Jeff, I think the consumer interest is growing. The challenge that we have is, again, when the apparel industry made that big transition to go overseas in the 90s, and they've set up all their systems, to basically how do we manufacture overseas, they're having a hard time pivoting back. And I think part of that reason they have a hard time pivoting back, they're not seeing or understanding all of their costs of their impact. So while the consumer is more engaged, I think the brands are less because, again, they're trying to say, not fully held responsible for their, global impact that they're having. And again, one thing I like to say is when you go outside of your market for a product or service your market can deliver, you're cheating the system. And this is a perfect example. I think back to, another scary fact, and I might miss the percentage a little bit, but I think it's about 90%, over 90% of the cotton that's grown in this country leaves this country somewhere along the supply chain. It could be fiber, it could be yarn, it could be fabric, but very little stays all the way here from, and we got this great asset of cotton here, but very little that stays in this country, travels around the world, so it comes back to your store so you can buy it. I mean, there's just something, again, we're not going to put the genie back in the bottle when it comes to globalization, but boy, we can do a much better job with certain things. And again, we're very fortunate to have a business in North Carolina, which I like to say is at the intersection of agriculture and apparel, the best place in the world, which has been neglected. And we've lost a lot of jobs because everybody says, well, it's too expensive. Let's define too expensive. And I think we'll have a different conversation. And I think opportunities are coming back here.
Well, so if we've got folks that are listening to us have this conversation that might have they might have their own business or think about starting a business, and they might run into similar challenges that you face in terms of saying, "Hey, I'd love to make it here in the United States, but there's such a cost difference that it's a very it's a big hill to climb here." I mean, how have you been successful in positioning yourself so that your customers are saying, "Hey, it's worth paying a little bit more for this product that I know I can see how it's made." You talk about dirt to shirt. You're focused on using local materials. You're focused on making sure that your employees are paid a fair wage. But ultimately, you still have to make a compelling case to your consumer that, hey, I've got a product that it's worth you paying, and you shouldn't go down to Walmart and get that $5 T-shirt. I got something that is more valuable. And how do you go about making that case? And how would some of our listeners, if they're facing that same challenge, what advice do you have for them?
One thing I like to say, Jeff, is one of my taglines: sustainability is a journey, not a destination. And we've been on this journey, since the mid '90s, and we'll be on this journey as long as I'm here. And hopefully, the next generation of TS Designs will continue on. And part of that journey is, it's not perfect, but being aware of your impact, how you can change that impact and move forward. But I mean, what I like to say is, I'll meet anybody along the spectrum, back to apparel, where they are, what they're doing. It might just, maybe they can't make the full on, come back to North Carolina, but maybe we can do some stuff, add some value add to it. And let's just start, developing that relationship, understanding the value that we can bring to them. But I do think what we can do is we can bring back speed to market that we've lost by going global. But again, true with all businesses, it's just there's no silver bullet solution to sustainability, but it starts with just being aware and then communicating, connect with people. It takes a community. There's not one person that has all the answers. So how do you find those people that can help? I mean, we've got wind, we've got solar. We used to make biodiesel back here. Yes, we did it TS Design. Yes, I was involved in it, but I can tell you there were a lot more other people, including myself, that help us do those projects and move those projects forward. So it's finding that community. And again, it's the Manufacturing Solutions Center, the Neuville that's up there. I mean, we're working on some projects with them. I mean, just the collaboration, we're just one little speck in this supply chain. And it's never been our goal to just control it all. We got a great relationship with a cotton farmer. I'll say probably 18 years now. I mean, they do a phenomenal job. I'm not interested in growing the cotton, learning the cotton. I trust them. And that's the nice thing, too, with these local supply chains I want to touch base on. You develop relationships beyond a PO. Mm-hmm. When you're in a global marketplace, I'm just sending a PO to you, and you execute it. You get the good quality. But if that's my only depth with you, if somebody else says, hey, I can do it cheaper, there's no depth to that relationship other than that one transaction. I know this third generation cotton. I'm working now with the third generation, start off with the second generation cotton farmer. I know their family. I've been there, been to their home, been to their farm, and I said it for their whole supply chain. And the value of that is when, the times are tough or you need a favor or things didn't go exactly right, is you've got a relationship beyond just this, PO to this person halfway around the world that you've never met. Can't even talk the language. Many time zones different. It's just you lose a lot there. And they're just, to me, relationships are so critical, especially in the apparel industry, because we all know there's a lot of steps that happen from that cotton field to that T-shirt that's back in my plant that's being produced.
So I know one of the things that you focus on is transparency about where your materials come from, where your products come from. You actually have a website that I think is called wearyourclothing.com.
That's correct.
Wear, WHERE, yourclothing.com. Yep. Tell us a little bit about what people can see there, and why did you do that?
Well, again, I think when it's at least 15 years ago when we developed the idea of working with a cotton farmer. And this again came out of NAFTA when I realized we're not going to be the low cost producer. And I said, wait a minute, we grow great cotton here in North Carolina. Let's connect with that cotton. I knew then, as I know now, we're not going to ever grow cotton. That's not what we do or makes sense or whatever. But when I went down and met at that, and now it was Ronnie at the time. Ronnie's in his mid-70s now. Andrew's running the farm. I remember when I first met him, he says, why in the heck is a little bitty company, DS Designs in Burlington, North Carolina, coming down here to buy? Because you can buy all the cotton T-shirts. At that time, it was a 1-800 number. Now you just go to a website. But anyway, and I says, I want to make sure we can control where that cotton goes. The only way to do that is I buy it. And then we have Samaritan that takes it from the field to the gin to the spin, knit, finish, cut, sew, all the way through. And so we knew, how do we not just say, hey, it's cotton to Carolinas? And we originally started off with contrasting thread in the sleeve and in the hem of the shirt. And so you would take those two little colors to the website, wearyourclothing.com, you put them in there, and here's the map where the shirt was made. Because again, sometimes we use a different spinner or a different knitter or whatever, all in the Carolinas, but it can move around. And then during COVID, we all got used to those scanning QR codes at the restaurants. Says, well, let's just put a QR code in our shirt, which we did. So basically, we pad print in the back of the neck. So you scan that, and then you go to everybody in the supply chain. But at that location, again, use the farmer as an example, you get a picture, a phone number, a physical address, and an email of everybody in the supply. You just go to the website. You don't have to ask my permission, just go there. And again, what I like to say is I'm not saying we're perfect. I'm not saying there's room not for improvement, but there's not going to be any secrets where our shirt is made. Try that with any other apparel you can buy or see. At best, you'll get made in, but that made in could be made in USA with imported fabric. Where did that imported fabric come from? It is just a black box of mystery. That black box is what constantly gets us into problems. And we're fortunate that we're able to have it all right here. So literally we can get in my car and see everybody in the supply chain in one day.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Now, one thing that I really enjoyed learning a little bit about, with your company is that you've gotten pretty creative in terms of figuring out ways to do natural dyes, and you guys were involved with this beanie, the marigold beanie, where you were getting flowers from a brewery, I think. And I know you were working on some sort of dye using acorns. Is that correct? Or
black walnuts is
I'm sorry.
The thing on the front burner right now.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, how do you have
That's interesting.
Do you have a mad scientist on your staff, or how do you come up with this stuff?
No, but I mean, that was during COVID. A lot of things happened. We had to really kind of look at our business, what we're going to do. So one thing we did during COVID, we launched TS Designs is business to business. So we launched a direct-to-consumer retail brand called Solid State Clothing. And TS Designs for years has always been, for a small business, we spend a lot of money on R&D because, again, a lot of people don't want to do it. They don't understand the expense, the time, whatever. We do it. But we've never had a way to, how do we engage the consumer that wants to support us, but basically can't order, 1,000 T-shirts. So Solid State was created. We're very fortunate during that, and she's highlighted in this marigold beanie that was our state magazine style product of the year in 2023. And Courtney Lockemer was our spokesperson on that. When she came on board of TS Designs during COVID, she had a natural dye background and interest. So when we launched Solid State, on the background, it says, let's start looking at natural dyes. The first thing we realized is majority of natural dyes, the materials are basically coming from other countries. We're not here. So marigold was the first one we did. We can grow it here. We can process it here. We made a great product. Fast forward, what happened now, we're super excited about what we call the Black Walnut Project. And we will be working with a group of MBA students at University of Vermont this spring and summer to document these revenue channels. but what we've determined is, and I don't have all the exact numbers, but there's millions, if not billions of pounds of black walnut falls on the ground. And if you know anything about black walnuts, when you pick them up, they get all, it's that nasty stuff on the outside shell. Well, that's what we want for the dyes. And then we've already partnered up with another company that will be able to take that husk off, and then you take the woody part. We can use that as an abrasive in hand cleaners, which we're already developing. Then you actually get the nut that we all want. And so we're going to map out these revenue channels. And so we've determined not only have all the brown dye we ever want. So we're trying to, the biggest challenge with natural dyeing is it's kind of a hit or miss, not a very controlled science. We want to bring consistency and capacity to grow that. And now we've got a resource that's essentially free. And so we're going to, how do we harvest that and build the system? So that's going to be happening this year. And then again, we do a black walnut t-shirt on solid state, again, to keep supporting and promoting that story. But I think we've got a dye garden that we're putting in at TS Designs to identify other plant material that we can use. We did a project with hemp leaves last year. So I think that we're just scratching the surface on what we can do with natural dyes that can be cultivated in the Carolinas.
Oh, super. Well,
Really creative.
Yeah. Well, Eric, you've been at this for a while, and as we sort of wind up a little bit, what sort of do you have advice for folks, business owners, to looking to make sure their businesses are going to be around a while? Sustainability probably has a few different meanings for you, but just in terms of extending your business and trying to make sure you're going to be around a while, what sort of advice do you have for other business owners?
Well, one thing I've learned in 44 years, and it's more, business is constantly changing. So if you don't have your eyes open and looking forward, you're going to get run over. And the other thing is, as I said earlier, it takes a community. I mean, again, a shout out to what you do, Jeff, at Manufacturing Solutions Center. I mean, y'all have done some testing for us, making some product for us. So you just, it's very hard unless you're a Taylor Swift and you just have talent and everybody pays you for that talent.
She got a pretty big crew behind her too, though, I think.
But she's the voice. What she says goes. I mean, for us, we're part of a very complicated system, and we need to stay connected and work with that. So it's just, you got to put yourself out there. You got to be willing to adapt and change. And we're just, again, it's one of those things, kind of like life too. We're lucky that I started a business at NC State in 1978. I started business, then I merged with TS Designs. And starting a business that the resources for my business can be done in this area, I get so much gratitude for, because I know it's sometimes you might say easier from the standpoint of checking the boxes in a global economy. But to me, the value of connecting with community and understanding the people that make it beyond the POs I said earlier just means so much to us and to TS Designs.
Well, we appreciate you sharing the TS Design story and having a chance to talk about how you've been able to compete in a global marketplace and do it locally. So kudos to you and
very impressive.
It's a story that I hope people can take some lessons and inspiration from as they're listening. So if people want to find out more about TS Designs, where should they be looking?
Website, very simple. T as in Tom, S as in Sam, Designs, DESIGNS.com.
Okay.
I have a burning question.
Burn.
Okay.
He's tied to NC State, and he's a Carolina fan.
I think he might have spent a little time at both institutions.
I was going to say. He's giving a shout out to both of them, so I think that's fair.
Oh yeah, it's interesting you say that because yes, and again we're very fortunate to have those great universities in our backyard because we do a lot of work at UNC and NC State. NC State, they got School of Textiles, Ag School, and then the Carolinas Business School. So yeah, I mean, and then we got Cotton Incorporated. I mean, we just got all these great institutions, organizations that are out there. But again, you have to engage with them. But the thing I found with the universities is they love to, especially get their students engaged in real world stuff and not just, reading from a textbook or something like that. But we're just very fortunate to have those relationships and institutes in our community.
And I think the one thing that can always bring together is our hatred of Duke.
Well, yes. That includes the black and gold from Winston-Salem, of course.
Notice Eric didn't mention, he didn't throw any kudos out to Duke, which we appreciate.
Yes. Yeah, we appreciate that.
Especially this week. So anyway.
So the lesson learned is make sure your collegiate allegiance is important to you, but you want to make sure from a business standpoint, you use all the resources that are available to us.
Build your network, right, Eric?
Build your network, nurse your network.
Unless they're in Durham.
Be there when your network needs you. Don't always feel like you're taking from them. When they need something, put yourself out. It's a two-way street.
Well, we very much appreciate you joining us today. We always like to do a little lightning round with our guests. You up for a little lightning round with us today?
Sure. Let's try.
Right. Well, today we're taping this on Groundhog Day. So in honor of Groundhog Day, our lightning round is sponsored by Ned Ryerson Insurance. Whole life, auto, flood, home. You can't have enough insurance. Stay safe with Ned Ryerson Insurance, and you should check out Ned Ryerson on the internet. So, Eric, we've got some quick questions, quick answers. Don't overthink it. First question, and this might go back to your beer co-op, but what is your adult beverage of choice?
Oh, of course, a beer from Burlington Beer Works.
Do you have a particular one? Are you an ale guy, a lager guy, an IPA guy? What's your choice there?
I go in there and I says, what do I look like today? There's usually 13 beers on tap, and they says, you look like this today. So I always go in there with an open mind, and they give me a great beer. So I have no preferences.
So as long as it's cold.
Yes. Okay. Cold and fresh and local.
Beatles or Rolling Stones for you?
Oh, Rolling Stones. I had an opportunity to see them for my 40th birthday on the front row. So definitely a Stones fan. My wife's a Beatle fan. They're okay, but Stones, of course.
Beatles are okay. Come on, let's give them a little bit more than that. All right.
But the Stones are still at it, man. They're giving us hope for us all.
This is true. They're still doing it. I don't know. Yeah. Keith Richards looks like he's a mummy, but he's doing it. If you were an Olympic athlete, what sport would you compete in?
The marathon.
Well, you've been doing it a long time.
Yeah, it's kind of like our business. I just keep on going.
Who is your pick to win this year's Super Bowl?
Oh, my gosh. I like to see a change, but I think the Chiefs are going to do it again.
Last question for you. If you had to pick a spirit animal, what would it be?
A spirit animal? I don't know why a wolf bop jumped in my mind, but a wolf. Right. I don't know why that came up with. You said what's top of my mind.
That's not a bad one. All right, wolf. All right, all right. Well, you can find out more about TS Designs, as Eric said, at TS Designs with an S on the back.com. You can go to their website and see a lot of the cool stuff they're doing. I think actually at one point when I was out there, Eric, I wandered over a TED Talk that you might have done several years ago as well. I don't know if that was on LinkedIn or TS Designs.
No, it's on our website. I did a TED Talk at Elon University many years ago. I was supposed to do another one, and that COVID thing got in the way, so I've done that. But Jeff, before I leave, I gotta give a shout out to Molly and Sarah at Industrial Commons, and then all the other people that I'll probably forget: Manufacturing Solutions Center, NC State, Gaston College, for the National Science Foundation engine grant. Congratulations. This is going to be a game changer and necessary funding for the apparel future. So I'm just so excited and honored, and just congratulations to all the people up in your neck of woods that participated to make this happen.
And thank you very much. What Eric is referring to is that the National Science Foundation in the last week or so announced that they would be funding a grant, what they call an engine, to help create a sustainable textile economy based here in Western North Carolina. And Eric contributed to presentations as the National Science Foundation evaluated that, and the Industrial Commons in Morganton, North Carolina. Maybe we'll get them on our podcast at some point in time.
Be great.
Was the lead organization and sort of orchestrated it. So Sarah Chester and Molly Hemstreet get some shout out for that. At the end of our podcast, we always like to give a shout out to small businesses. Eric, I don't know if you got anybody you want to give any kudos to. I mean, you've already talked about the Burlington Beer Co-op. We're going to be checking them out. You got anything else you want to?
Now, I want to give a shout out to a good friend of mine in your neck of the woods, Guy Carpenter at Bear Fiber. Guy I've known for, good gracious, another 20 plus years. But we're very fortunate to have Guy not only in North Carolina, his business in Morganton, but he's a leader and on the front of bringing industrial hemp back to the U.S. And again, big shout out to him. We're working on some projects with him, and we wouldn't be with hemp in the States if it wasn't the work the Guy did. So thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
He's very tireless at that, no doubt about it. Gary, you got a small business you want to give a shout out to?
I do. And it kind of fits in my wheelhouse of the things that I talk about in our business of the month. I was going to visit my daughter and grandchildren in Charleston area, Somerville to be exact. And we went to dinner at Page's Okra Grill.
Okra Grill.
And you would not have expected that to come out of Gary Muller's mouth, because I'm pretty straightforward. Hot dogs, hamburgers, and pizza.
Yeah, more of a cheeseburger kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly. But they took me there to their new restaurant. Actually, before I go there, started as food truck. So I think it's interesting. They started the business food truck in Mount Pleasant, right outside Charleston. And basically, they used the food trucks to test the market. And so they also did a food truck in the Somerville area. And it's great. It's good down-home Southern food, known for their seafood. But they have a nice setting they've put around their restaurants, and the food's great. And I had a vegetable tray, and they have great desserts. And so
if you eat the vegetables, you're allowed to go heavy on the dessert.
I know. So it was a great combination.
Good for you. So
there was something for everybody there in a great setting.
All right. Well, sounds good. And I'll have to check with you. We got a wedding on the docket in Charleston this summer, so I'll have to get some additional recommendations from you as well.
Yeah, because we love Charleston.
All right. I'm going to give a shout out to a company, and I'm wondering if Eric has heard of them, but it's a company called American Roots in Portland, Maine. And I was reading an op-ed piece written by a woman named Rachel Slade, and she's just come out with a book called Making It in America that really talks about the challenges that this company, American Roots, has had in doing fleece and T-shirts and apparel in Portland, Maine. And I think they've been through some similar challenges that we've been through here in North Carolina, where they saw their apparel industry disappear. And a fellow named Ben Waxman, who had grown up in Portland, Maine, moved away, came back in 2013, and his mom had an apparel business when he was growing up, and he decided that he wanted to restart the business and create American-made products. And he's slowly and surely been able to do that. And he and his wife are running the company. They do fleece, they do cottons, lightweight jerseys. One of the big challenges that they've had is putting a workforce together and making sure that they're paying them a livable wage. And
Right.
they've been creating industrial sewing programs there, similar to what the Industrial Commons does in Morganton, to create a workforce. So just felt like a very cool company. They've also found a way to do it here in the United States. And if you go to AmericanRootsWear, WEAR.com, you can learn about them. So check them out when you get a chance.
Very cool.
So anyway, we appreciate Eric. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing information about what you're up to. And we want to give big thanks to the Mesh Podcast Network, as always, for hosting us. You can check them out at themesh.tv and see a whole bunch of different cool podcasts that they're doing, from business to comedy to sports to all sorts of things. And so check them out at themesh.tv. And Gary, we'll look forward to coming back next month and doing it
Looking
again.
forward to it. This was great. Thanks, Eric. We appreciate you.
Gary, Jeff, thank you so much for the opportunity. Y'all have a great rest of your weekend. Remember, importantly, go Heels.
I can even say that this weekend.
Y'all have a good one, guys. Thanks so much.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.